Hey everyone, Andrew here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Aisling Gray Quartet by Katie MacAlister. And this is a series that ended up reading because I read another book by her called Blow Me Down, which is about pirates, and has the worst title of a book I've ever come across. And I'm someone who just read Nerd in Shining Armor. But that book was really good and really interesting, and I will probably do a review on that at some point. But for right now, I wanted to talk about this quartet. This little series is 4 books. It's a really interesting murder mystery with elements of fantasy and romance sprinkled throughout. I say elements, but it's really a fantasy with elements of mystery and romance sprinkled throughout. But I'm not going to go about this one the way I do some of the others because I legit can't. It's been a couple years since I read this quartet, and I tried to remember the entire plot, and I tried to find summaries to help me remember the plot, and yeah, I couldn't find anything that helps, and it's 4 300-page books. I'm not going to be able to read it and do this in the time frame that I've given myself, but I do remember bits of it, so I just want to talk about it and give a brief overview of the plot of the series versus the individual books. So the first book is called You Slay Me, and this is where we get introduced to Aisling Gray, who is an American courier who has been given her first big assignment to Paris, France, to drop off a mystical item used for demon summoning. Right off the bat, the person that she's supposed to deliver the items to is found dead in the house, and Aisling's like, what the hell's going on? And worst of all, that person's found on top of a demon summoning circle. She is immediately questioned / accosted by Drake, who is the leader of the Green Dragons. He steals the mystical item from her after she doesn't give him proper answers. She goes chasing after him to this bar, and he keeps calling her a guardian. It's like, leave us alone, guardian. And she's like, what in the world is a guardian? And he's like, a guardian is someone who guards the portals between the Earth realm and Abaddon, or Hell. He then randomly just decides to kiss her, which is bad enough because that's an attack, especially since she didn't ask for it or wanted it. But it's even worse because he unleashes his fire when he does that, and the only people that can survive that are other dragons or dragon mates. And luckily for Aisling, she turns out to be his dragon mate. And was able to survive that. But she's like, okay, nope, I'm not dealing with this. Nope. She leaves and goes off, and she's like, okay, I have to figure out if this is real, what to do. So she gets a bunch of supplies and decides she's going to try and summon a demon. She's going to summon something low level just to prove to herself that if this doesn't happen, she is crazy. If it does happen, then the world is crazy, type of thing. And she gathers the supplies, does her best, but has absolutely no idea what she's doing. And she ends up summoning this Newfoundland dog, which is a dog that's medium-sized, very hairy. But this dog can talk. This dog is a demon named Ephraim, or Jim. And he is by far the best thing in the entire series. He is amazing. He is the sarcastic, wisecracking pal of our main character, who basically, he's Deadpool. He just makes fun of everything that's going on the entire time. It's really great, and will not shut up. And he's actually, he could be annoying, but he's way more fun than he is annoying. He turns out to be an unassigned demon. He hasn't been claimed by any of the demon lords, but her summoning him is basically claiming him. So she ends up becoming a demon lord. So now Aisling, Jim, and Drake have to find who's been committing this murder and the other murders that follow as a result of this, while also figuring out why she's attracted to Drake, trying to keep him at bay because he's a jackass for the entire book. And the next book, he's rough. He's really hard to like as a character, unless you like the bad boys who treat you like trash. But yeah, that's the first book, and it's got that plot to it. And it's really interesting, and I do like the fact that even though she's attracted to him, and there is that stuff, he's like, you should come be my mate and stay with me, and she's like, yeah, no, I'm going home. And she just went back home at the end of the book. And we get into the second book, which is her going to Budapest because there's a conference going on of magical beings, and she's hoping to meet a guardian who's willing to train her so she can use her powers. She still has Jim at this time. He's tied to her for the entire series, so it works out well. And within a few minutes of arriving in Budapest, she runs into Drake, who is there for a council of the dragon clans because war is on the brink of breaking out. And at this, we are introduced to Gabriel, who is the leader of the Silver Dragons. And he is the complete opposite of Drake. He's very kind, he's very considerate. He actually seems to legitimately care about Aisling, whereas Drake spends the entirety of the second book being like, you need to stop trying to be a guardian, you need to stop being a courier, you need to stop being a demon lord. You are just my mate, that's all you are. Yeah, our main love interest, everybody. Meanwhile, at this conference, a number of guardians are being killed via sex. They are being drained dry by incubus. And no, not the band. In this universe, an incubus is the male form of a succubus. So succubus is female, sucks out male energy. Incubus is male, sucks out female energy. Everyone believes that Aisling is the one summoning these because they don't tend to do things on their own. So all they care about is sex. They don't tend to kill unless they're ordered to. Also during this, we meet a woman whose professional job is just virgin. That's just her entire MO, is she's just a mega virgin, and everyone that meets her falls in love with her. But she will not sleep with anybody. So yeah, that's her profession. And you get to meet some of the other dragons leaders in this one. You get some interesting ones, and because there's Gabriel, who's amazing. There's the red dragon leader, whose name I forget, but she's female, and she is just mega witchy. She hates everybody. Like, I think she hates men, she hates women, she hates everybody. She just wants war. And you meet the blue dragon, who isn't impressive in this book, isn't impressive in any of the books, but he becomes a major threat in the next one. But yeah, it's pretty good. I do like the fact that the incubus started coming after Aisling and when she's in her private room, and they just keep showing up and she keeps kicking them out. After a certain point, she's like, "Oh, I give up," and she gets up and leaves and goes to Drake's room and gets in the bed. And he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm staying in the room. We are not doing anything. I'm just keeping them away because the second they say you, they will run." Yeah. And that's basically just solving who's doing these murders before all the guardians are dead, type of thing. It's a good mystery. Third one is Light My Fire, which basically at the end of the last one, Aisling again went back home, but she met Nora, who is a guardian who's agreed to train her. So the beginning of this book is Aisling has just moved to London to begin her training, and before her bags even arrive from America, Nora has been arrested by the other guardians and is basically under suspicion and is not allowed to train Aisling in her powers at all. And Drake also shows up in London, and this time intentionally following her. And he's like, "I need you to help me because, we're having another council and I need my mate there." And it's like, "I will keep you protected because Jim, unfortunately, has screwed up an imp that turned out to be the prince of the imps. So now the entire imp kingdom of demons is hunting Aisling. Plus, there's a lot of people hunting Aisling in this book. That's pretty much the entire book. Is just everyone is trying to kill her, mixed in with a lot of Drake trying to romance Aisling and actually succeeding because he does actually grow as a character in this book. He's actually trying, he gives up on trying to make her into just his mate. He accepts her for who she is a little bit more. And we get to actually, because there was sex scenes in the other ones, but they were just, "You're hot, I'm hot, we need to do this once and done. We're never going to do this again. And it actually turns into romantic relationships. And get into the interesting part of that, which is because he's a dragon, a lot of the sex involves fire, specifically breathing fire on each other. And it's really weird and interesting way to read about sex. And it's like, just like, I remember that being like the most like, that sounds dangerous and haunting at the same time. Sounds fun. Especially if you're immune to the fire, that's good. But yeah, this is actually the first of the quartet I read. I actually read book 3 first, and I read it during this infamous weekend that I had where I went up to visit my grandparents in Washington, and I read like 7 books in 2 days, all 300 pages or more, and that's the book. That was the trip that told me I'm a reader and I enjoy books and I should read more books. And it's like, I can do this. I can read these higher, more advanced books. So I do have to thank that book and all the books that I read that weekend because of that. But honestly, like, a lot of the plot is very muddled for me. I do know that she ends up going from just a demon lord to one of the highest level demon lords and gets all of these new demons under her control, but also gains demonic power that, if she uses, turns her evil. Which I hate. I'd rather the power corrupts because it's so much type of thing versus no, this power is inherently evil. I've never liked the idea that power in any sense is inherently evil. I just think it has the potential to make things easier, thus leading to more darker actions. But yeah, we also had Drake and Gabriel were fighting over Aisling, and then ended up being the blue dragon leader comes in and challenges Drake to a duel for Aisling and wins via cheating. But Drake's like, it's like, we're not going to count that. I'm going to go to war. I'm never going to let him near you. Which leads into the 4th book, which starts with Drake and Aisling at their wedding day. Except Drake has disappeared. And now Aisling has to go and try to rescue him. And this plot ends up all revolving around Aisling trying not to give in to her demonic power, but also has to do a lot with Drake's brother, who we barely learn about by the 3rd book, and he only comes into real play in this 4th book, who was a member of the Lost Dragon tribe, known as the Black Dragons. And his leader and his clan cursed the Silver Dragons. The Silver Dragons are, especially the leader specifically, is cursed that he can never be with a mate of someone who was born. And that comes into play in the spin-off series that I will talk about at another date and time. If Drake came off very old-fashioned jerk, his brother is the world's biggest old-fashioned hole. He's the hardest character to like in any way, sense, or form. But we also have Aisling trying to lower her demon level so she doesn't have that demonic power, but also gets to keep Jim because she does, even though he's annoying to her, she does care about him. He is important to her. And coming into her own guardian power and figuring out how to use that power for good. And the whole series ends on a really positive note. It's not completely finished. It leaves it open for more, which is one of those things where it's like, ugh. But this quartet is the end of that specific arc. Everything that we need settled specifically for these characters, is at least these 2 leads, is mostly covered. And then leads into the 2 spin-off series. First is the Silver Dragons, and then there is the Light Dragons, who is an even older, forgotten race of dragons. But yeah, overall, like, the series is mostly really good. I enjoy a lot of the characters. I especially like Jim is amazing. I really like Aisling, even though I read a couple people saying, like, giving her negative, that she's really very much a Mary Sue kind of character. She's kind of in the middle. I'm like, it's like, no, or that she is too forgiving and too understand, because she puts up with a lot of crap from Drake and doesn't leave him or anything. And it's like, yeah, but she does. It's that thing of being, like, attracted to someone you can't stand, which I just heard someone talking about how that doesn't exist in reality. There's never been a couple that hated each other right off the bat. I'm like, yeah, there have. There's always going to be people like that. It's like not necessarily the healthiest relationship, but it can be. It can, if it can grow into something more, if you both change for the better as a result of it. But overall, yeah, it's a really fun, good series. It's got a lot of world building, a lot of drama, a lot of interesting stuff to it. And I really do like this author for the most part. She like this series and this style of series is pretty good. Her individual work, she's done a couple. She's done like Corset Diaries is a really popular one that she did. She did A Hard Day's Night, which is about people in Renaissance fairs, which was pretty good. The only thing I have to say with Katie MacAlister is be very, very wary of her vampire books. I personally cannot stand her vampire books. I think her depiction of vampires is actually worse than Twilight. Like, legitimately think that. Because all of her vampires, A, can walk in the sun too. They don't have that distinction. They're not really that much of blood drinkers. And all they're looking for is their soulmate. Yeah, it's such a wussification of them. It's just, I have one or two that it's like, it's alright, but the majority of them I just say avoid her vampire books entirely. But as for the quartet, yeah, this quartet is pretty good. And I like the fact that every single one of them is a really distinct color. So you can really tell, like, you go through the aisles, you'll see these. They're pretty bright. And I really do like all the characters and the world building and story and the uniqueness of it. It is something that there are other stories that have some of this stuff, but I never in this context and this well woven together. But yeah, mostly like I enjoy just a lot of this series. It's a good building. Like if I was gonna rate the books, I would rate the first and the third are 4 out of 5s, and the second and the fourth are 5 out of 5s. They're both really good, well told. The four, there was one problem I had with the third one, and that was just that you started out with like these 4 really big problems that she had to solve, and she only really kind of solved one. And in solving that one, created an even bigger problem by getting that demonic power. So that was sort of my thing of like, I've just read a 300+ page story and nothing's resolved. And granted, most of it's resolved by the fourth book, but she also, like I said, left it open for others. But, this series is pretty good. Jim saves the entire project. So if you like sarcastic dogs that make jokes every couple of pages, I highly recommend it. Happy reading!